Good evening and welcome to the fourth and final night of our Winter 2023 Quest series, which is about world's religion. If you're here for the premiere, you are going to hear sessions 7 and 8. If you're watching by recording and not watching it live, then you can pick these up at any point. But it's really not just about world religions, but it's also about understanding your neighbor's faith. And you'll see that particularly in the final and 8th session. Our presenter is Dr. Sam Thompson. And you can see here in this shot some general scenes of Concordia Lutheran Seminary, our opening picnic, chapels, students, library, a number of things that are part of our heart and core. Here you see our seminary. It looks out over the beautiful North Saskatchewan River Valley, and there's nobody in it right now. It was just one of those glorious days, sort of like Easter Sunday when the room glows from the light on the other side, and Christ is indeed the light of the world. Just to introduce our faculty, to the left you see Dr. Alex Vieira. He did our quest a year ago, and he is one of our exegetes. To the right is Dr. Jen Frim, also a deacon, but she has her doctorate in Bible as well, so helps with the exegetical load. You see on the left here, Dr. John Helwig. He's our historian, historical theology faculty. And then on the right, you see the familiar face of our systematic theologian, Dr. Sam Thompson, who's leading our sessions this evening. This evening, for the premiere, or maybe if you're watching it by recording, we'll have two segments tonight. One is on Neo-Paganism, that kind of neo-pagan idea about the way that things are emerging. You may have heard it in the questions for session 6 about animism and some of the other things that are becoming more prevalent. You also hear in session 8 what is a Christian's theological response to world religions, and Dr. Thompson will unpack that a bit, especially thinking about our neighbor and our neighbor's faith. So I'm going to welcome Dr. Thompson and let him take over to introduce neo-pagan ideas as something that we need to be aware of. Dr. Thompson?
Thank you, Dr. Gimbel, for those words of introduction. And welcome back to this lecture series on world religions, understanding your neighbor's faith. Today we will talk about neo-paganism, one of the rising religious movements in the 21st century, especially in the global north. Interestingly, when we talk about global north, we may think that this is a place of hot seat of atheism and agnosticism and so on. But interestingly, this is a place where neo-paganism got its birth and is also rising in numbers. And one may wonder why it is so. G.K. Chesterton, he once said, when a man stops believing in God, he doesn't then believe in nothing. He believes in everything. Maybe there lies the clue of it. Now, in this lecture, we will talk about what is neo-paganism and what are the general features of neo-paganism. And neo-paganism is so vast, and it composed of many small traditions. So it is impossible to take a journey, walk through all those traditions. So we will talk about the Wiccan tradition, a kind of representative of neo-paganism. Now, what is paganism? The word pagan comes from the Latin, a word which means country person, which is used as a term of abuse by Romans to indicate people who are living on the countryside, instead of more refined so-called city dwellers. Now, the term was used in the 4th century differently. It was used in the 4th century to identify people and traditions which belong to non-Abrahamic faiths, which include polytheism, nature worship, spirit worship, and also different ethnic religions. Now, from second half of the 20th century, neo-paganism or contemporary paganism is a concept used to designate a variety of religious and spiritual movements which claim a pagan influence or ancestry based on different lines of paganism. That could be classic or ancient paganism, ethnic paganism, or any kind of pre-Christian European religions. Now, among the best known expressions of paganism are Vika religion, contemporary witchcraft, Deotheism, Germanic neo-paganism, and Satanism, and so on. Now, moving on, the origins of neo-paganism. The advent of neo-paganism can be traced back to individuals like Charles Cardell and Gerald Gardner. He is often called the father of Wika and also the father of the neo-pagan movement in United Kingdom, who popularized his nature-based beliefs. Now, Gardner is known as the father of neo-paganism, and his important books include the Gardnerian Book of Shadows, which brought the Wiccan movement to the public interest. Now, Gardner was a practitioner and developer of the Wicca cult or Wicca religious tradition. Now, his work or his practice received an academic support or rationale from the works of a person called Margaret Alice Murray. Now, she was an Anglo-Indian Egyptologist and archaeologist and a historian, and also one of the earliest feminist thinker. Interestingly, in her witch cult hypothesis, he stated that witch trials of the early European modern period were actually an attempt to suppress a pre-Christian pagan fertility religion. But these religions have survived the Christianization of Europe, and such groups of people are there in our midst today also. And she argued that the witch cult revolved around worshipping a horned god, and now the Christians thought that this horned god is devil or Satan, and that is the reason why the Christians went after these people and persecuted them. Now, the Margaret Murray's critical works include The Witch Cult in Western Europe, which was published in 1921, and The God of the Witches in 1931. And she argued that modern-day witches are not devil worshippers, but they can be traced to indigenous fertility religions from ancient Egypt. She also, what she did is she toned down what she saw as the more unpleasant aspects of witch cult, such as animal and child sacrifice, and she started giving a positive picture to these ancient religions. And she began describing it also as the old religion or the religion of joy and so on. Some scholars have welcomed Margaret's findings, but critics points out that none of these people were experts in the witch scholarship. And in fact, several witch trial scholars have come forward, and since then they have done extensive research using archival records from the witch trials, and they argued that those tried for witchcraft were not practitioners of a surviving pre-Christian religion, as pointed out by Andrew Murray, and they also discredited her work, pointing out there were selective use of resources, or there were factual errors and methodological failings and so on. But although her work was discredited, Gardner used her findings, and also together both of them were able to make the neo-paganism as a popular movement. The rise of the modern neo-paganism We will find that in Britain. Britain is the birthplace of neo-paganism, we would say, and Europe and North America. And Margaret Murray is often referred as the grandmother of Wika, and also the gardener is often referred to as I said, the father of Wika. And in fact, Gardner, basing his support on Margaret Murray's work, in fact, he argued that he encountered a surviving coven. Coven is a group of witches who come together to practice or to worship their neo-pagan religion. So he argued that he in fact met some surviving coven of witches coming from tracing their roots back to this ancient time, and he got initiated in this group, and he said that's where from he developed this new Wiccan tradition and made it popular and famous. And he was very vocal in developing neo-paganism, arguing its roots back to ancient fertility religion, which then is discredited by many scholars. Now, in the past few decades, the word pagan has been used by its followers to affirm their identity and demand religious tolerance and freedom in society. So we will find that neo-pagans are being more accepted, and they are more kind of coming into to the mainstream society, becoming more public. Neo-paganism, as I said, is one of the fastest growing movements in North America, and it is estimated that there are 1 million self-declared pagans in the United States, and we do not know the exact number of neo-pagans in Canada, but there is a growing presence of pagan participation in politics and other aspects of Canadian public life. And this is evidenced by growing membership in pagan organization and increasing number of pagan chaplains in the higher educational institutions. Some of the important pagan organizations in Canada include the Pagan International Federation, the Heathen Freeholder Society of BC and Maritime Heathens, and the Wiccan Church of Canada. Now, having understood the origins of neo-paganism, I would like to bring out or present before you some of the general features of a neo-pagan religion. As I said, neo-paganism consists of a lot of religious tradition. It is vast, and it is impossible to take a survey of all the religious tradition, but there are some common features which stands out in neo-paganism, and let's look into some of those features which stands out in neo-pagan tradition. The first thing which stands out in neo-pagan tradition is that it is non-hierarchical and it is non-authoritative, and this is something finds attraction to so many people. So the Margaret Adler, an author and Wiccan priestess, she said, many people said that they had become pagans because they could be themselves and act as they choose without what they felt were medieval notions of sin and guilt. So there is nothing authoritative up there dictating them, whether it is a religious system or it is people. So there is no single articulated hierarchical system of authority for contemporary paganism. Individuals will read and write their books, and they can devise prayers and rituals and construct and hallow symbols and without the help of any external source. And even in the modern times, organizations are formed, but then these organizations are formed not to control them, but only to support, to provide network and to provide legal assistance to practitioners. So there is no binding authority figure in neo-paganism. The next thing which stands out in neo-paganism is that it is diverse and it is also an evolving evolving tradition. So Neo-Paganism is diverse because it accommodates belief systems which are so different from each other, like pantheism, panentheism, animism, henotheism, spirit worship, and even atheism also. Interestingly, what we will find out that in Neo-Paganism, you will find Satanism, and Satanism, there are two varieties of Satanism you can find, and one strand is atheistic Satanism, where you don't believe in a personal figure called Satan, but it is more like the worship of the self, or the worship of an alternative authority who stands against authority, and it's a celebration of the self, and it's a celebration of anything against an authoritative or hierarchical figure. And of course, and there is another strand of theistic Satanism, where Satanism is seen as the real person. So again, as I said, it is so diverse. So you have the atheistic tradition also you can find in some of the neo-paganistic tradition. So anything, anything which is perceived to have some kind of significance or divine significance can be worshipped in this religious tradition. And even, as I said, non-divine kind of thing can also be worshipped. So there is no heresy or right way of doing things. Anything that is helpful, they would say, anything that is beneficial or anything which works for you can be affirmed and can be celebrated. Let's talk about the spirituality then. Now, the neo-pagan religion is ritualistic, and it is also experience-oriented. So more than a doctrine, it talks about more in terms of experience. And neo-paganism is based on then rituals and also experience. So the question is not whether an experience is real or authentic, but the question they ask is whether this particular experience, they would say the alternative consciousness which they achieved, is helpful. So that is the only question, whether it works, whether it is helpful for you. So the rituals are the means to produce magical and altered state of consciousness, they would say, because these altered state of consciousness would help you to tap into the frequency level there in the spirit world and also in the earth. So now they believe that this altered consciousness or religious experience can appeal to unforeseen forces in nature or the spirit realm to accomplish what they want to do. And another interesting characteristic of neo-paganism is that their spirituality and their experiences, it is spontaneous, and they encourage spontaneity, and also it is improvisational. The contemporary paganism, they improvise things. So the rule one is to improvise. Whenever you feel creative juices are flowing, and these are the words of Budapest, a witch priestess and author, very famous, very popular figure in neo-paganism. She said, the number one rule is to improvise whenever you feel creative juices are flowing. Spontaneous prayer is more powerful than memorized. What comes through the soul at the moment is more powerful than what is hammered into the brain. The neo-pagan spirituality is also, you will find a strong emphasis on self and an affirmation towards nature. And this is a feature which again stands out. So neo-paganism elevates the individual by finding divinity in a person. Neo-paganism believes that inside each person there is, you can find goddesses and God. So basically, gods are within you and you are divine. And it stresses that divine is not something out there. but something eminent in this world, in nature, and also within ourselves. So the divinity and also the god and goddesses, thou art goddesses, thou art God, that is a catchphrase. Now, Neo-Paganism finds divinity personified not only in people but also in the nature. So there are deities associated with the mountains, lakes or springs, plants, particular region or the whole earth, particular country, and so on. And there are also deities and powers and energies associated with the cycles of natural year, like winter, summer, and so on and so forth. And these seasons of the natural year is then marked by particular festivals. And during this festival, they have different kinds of rituals through which they believe they can have access to different deities associated with that particular season. Now, let's talk about their belief in the supernatural. Their belief in supernatural can be summed up as Deotheism, polytheism, henotheism, and atheism. And most neo-pagans have a theistic understanding of the ultimate reality, a great God and the great goddesses. So they understand the supernatural in terms of duality, the great God and great goddesses, who is then equal to each other, and there is no subordination and inferiority attached to God, to these two dual gods. Both are of equal status and equally powerful. And in each tradition, these names of this male and female god may differ. And they believe that all gods and goddesses in this world are then the manifestation of this ultimate Deo. So from this ultimate Deo comes all other deities and all other gods, and they can be traced back to this ultimate dual gods. Many pagans are also henotheistic. Since there is a pantheon of deities, they will choose their own favorite, their own personal deity. So they choose their favorite local god to venerate and worship, and to get what they to get their desired ends. And some neo-pagans do not believe in a personal God. They may believe in a kind of a supreme cosmic principle, which is the origin and source of all things. So they believe there is a vibration or frequency or kind of a principle which operates in the universe, and you need to tap into that energy source to be blessed. And some traditions, as I already pointed out, are atheistic, like atheistic Satanism, which then worships self and which is counter-authoritative. You will also find, the features of ancestral or spirit veneration in neo-paganistic traditions. So the pagan religions often include ancestral deities. So these may consist of the spirits of the dead ancestors who have gone from us for a long time, for generations, or also it may be somebody who is newly dead, who is dear to us, or who is seen as a savior figure in our lives, who is now no more, and whom we has got a very close family ties. And adding to that, they also have added local spirits associated with each particular geographical place. They may have household gods or even household guardian toad or a snake. And in fact, the local and national heroes and heroines may sometimes deified and also worshipped. Even Julius Caesar, in some traditions, they find him as God, celebrate him as God. And many of them offer daily offerings of food and drink to these ancestor spirits, and in that way they pay homage to that. However, one thing that we may not find in neo-paganism is monotheism. So neo-paganism rejects monotheism because this is a faith in one God, an authoritative God, they would say, at the expense of dismissing all other gods. So that's the reason why they don't accept monotheism, because all other gods are then thought to be false or lesser. Because in neo-paganism, every god is thought to be a kind of having some kind of equality and so on. What then is their belief about afterlife? That is an interesting question. Now, neo-paganism is not developed, not obsessed with the questions of afterlife, or they haven't developed the doctrine about afterlife that much. But that doesn't mean that they do not have understanding of the afterworld life, but it means that they are more this worldly, and they think more about what is good for this life's well-being. So that is more essential. That's what they're concerned with. What is essential for this world, that we are concerned about. But as I said, they do believe some kind of, they do have a notion of some kind of afterlife. So reincarnation comes in there, and also a place called afterworld or summerland, or a spiritual realm, which they would call the other world or shining land, and etc. So neo-paganism generally believes in an afterlife of some form of another, although it is not that much developed. But they do not believe in an absolute place, like an absolute place of eternity like heaven or hell, where one will remain for eternity. And they believe that this other world, afterworld, or summer land or shining land is a place where soul will dwell between their reincarnation. And in this place, the soul can decide what kind of reincarnation they can assume in the next life. And this place, they believe, is interconnected with all things in the universe, and one can access this realm through divination to seek answers. So the spirit world a person can access, and neo-paganism offers a lot of techniques and spiritual rituals so that you can access the spirits from this realm for your benefit. What then about their ethics? What about ethics? Again, neo-paganism does not have a robust moral or ethical system, and neo-paganism does not have a concept of sin, and they don't believe in any sin. However, the general ethics code can be summed up under two principles. One is harm none, do as you will. Basically, it means if you do not harm anyone, you can do whatever you like. So if you do not harm anyone, you can do whatever you like. And the next principle is the law of the triple fold. And they would say, remember, anything you do, good or bad, will return to you threefold. So anything you do, good or bad, will return to you threefold. So if you are, basically they call out to you to be responsible. So to be responsible. So if you're willing to, if you're going to do something harm, be prepared and to receive, that's bad coming back, evil coming back to you. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Having understood the general features of neo-paganism, now let's focus on one of their tradition, Wika. I have chosen Wika because it got a lot of features which can be a kind of a representative of many Wican traditions, many neo-pagan traditions. So we will talk about what is Wika and the origins of Wika, and their general features, their understanding of God and goddesses, their understanding of 5 elements, their understanding of the seasons or the wheel of the year, their rituals and the tools they employ. So let's talk about the origins of Vika. Now, Vika is a religion influenced by pre-Christian beliefs and practices of Western Europe that affirms the existence of supernatural power, such as magic, and of both male and female deities who inhere in nature and emphasize ritual observance of seasonal and life cycles. So this is a definition given for Vika in Merriam-Webster dictionary. Now we may wonder, what does this word Vika means? Now Vika is derived from the Old English word for witch or sorcerer. So it means witch or sorcerer. Now Wicca is a new religious movement founded by Gerald Gardner in 1950s in southern England. Now Gardner, drawing support from Margaret Murray's work, claimed that Wicca is a continuation of an ancient Celtic and pagan practice that people thought that went underground to survive Christian persecution in 17th century. Actually, it just went underground, but it is still surviving. It was still surviving, and it is there present today. And Gardner said he got initiated. He met these people and got initiated into this group, and it is where he developed this tradition. Now, Wicca is one of the fastest growing neo-pagan tradition and is presented as a kind of a touristy, benevolent form of witchcraft and magic. So witches are presented as persons who practice good magic and religious rites to ensure fertility of people and the land, relief in sickness, and counsel during the times of trouble, and also to gather foreknowledge of the forthcoming kind of event. So they believe that they can foresee, they can talk to some spirits, or they can foresee what is happening in future. There are several books attached to the Wiccan tradition, but the fundamental books are written by Gardner, and the important book is 1940s, a book published in somewhere around 1940s, which is called The Handbook of Rituals, Magical Practices, Ethics, and Philosophy of Wiccan Tradition. And then this is a book got elaborate kind of rituals and practices for any Wiccan to do. And the next book, which is 1954, which came out, is Witchcraft Today. It is a version of the history of the witches, and it presents people as more like witches and Wicca tradition as a more benevolent tradition. And in order to popularize the Wiccan tradition, Gardner wrote again. He wrote in 1959 another book called The Meaning of Witchcraft. Basically, this book was written to publicize and popularize and to introduce Wiccan tradition to common people. Having understood the origins, now let's talk about general features of Wiccan tradition. Again, the Wiccan tradition is so much internally diverse, and the Wicca is not monolithic, and it is internally diverse. It combines various elements from different traditions in a new and original way. And Wiccan traditions have features from Freemasons, various historic tradition, and occultic rituals, fertility cults. It borrows things from shamanism and Buddhism, Hinduism, and so on. Margaret Adler, again a high priestess and author of Wiccan tradition, she said, if there is anything which stands out or normal in this tradition, is in this religion there is an exception to everything. In this religion there is an exception to everything. Another important feature, their understanding about God, is Deotheism. Most of them are Deotheistic. They believe there are two God figures, a mother goddesses, and a male horned god. And they are equal, warm, and pervade the whole creation. And together they form a balance in creation. And many Wiccans are also, polytheistic, and many others are pantheistic and animistic and henotheistic. But everything, comes back to Deotheism, and it flows from there. Let's talk about who this Deotheistic God is. First, as I said, they got an understanding of a male god or a horned god. The horned god is thought to be the ruler of the wild animals and hunting activities of humans. So it's kind of an outdoor, wild kind of god. And he's also associated with the sun. So that is so much significant in this tradition, because they attach so much significance to sun and also to the moon. So so there are a lot of rituals, and there are a lot of things happens in this tradition associated with the movement of the sun and also the lunar cycles. So this is very interesting. So now this god is associated with the sun and its role in growing and harvesting a food provided by the earth. And he's also associated with the fire and light, and his journey around the earth brings cycle of seasons. And these cycle of seasons are, we will find out that soon, we'll find out that are celebrated. With special rituals, Wiccans follow the natural course of then winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And the sun is, as you know, is understood as a source of life. So the horned god is also associated with sex, the procreative act that generates new life. And he's also called the father sky god, father sky god. Now, they understand the next person in this duality or dual understanding of God is mother goddesses. And Wiccans understand the mother goddesses as the earth mother or the great mother, the source that sustains life and allows it to flourish in life. She is also associated with the domestic animals. Her symbol is moon. So the moon they believe creates ocean tides and influences life on this earth. So as a mother goddess, she represents the receptive aspect of sex and bringing fertility, life, nurture, and care to the creation. Now the mother goddesses, they believe, has three forms, and sometimes because of this, they refer these goddesses as triple goddesses. The maiden, the mother, and the crown represents the three different traits and aspects of women's life. So the maiden, with the symbol of left waxing moon, represents innocence and adventure. And the mother, the full moon, the symbol with the symbol full moon, it represents compassionate love and nurture. The crown, the right waxing moon, the symbol, it denotes wisdom. So a lot of feminist thinkers affirm this goddesses tradition, saying that the symbol of these triple goddesses affirms power and resilience in women towards liberation. Having understood their understanding of God and goddesses, let us move on to their important symbol or an object they use in their Wiccan practices. So this is called Pentacle. Now Pentacle is an important symbol or an object they use as a tool, or an object they use in their magic or witchcraft. And it is a 5-pointed star, often encircled, and always has a one upward point. So the point is upward that you would find. In Satanism, which you will find the same pentacle, but the upward arrow is down. So that is, they find it is not so much benevolent, but this is kind of they believe it's kind of a benevolent kind of tradition which taps into the positive energy. So you will find the find it pointing the upward towards upward pointer you would find. So each point then represents the elements of air, earth, fire, and water, and the fifth element is spirit. And they believe these are the element which goes into making this universe. And again, this comes from, you will find it in Greek philosophy also, and Hinduism also. You will find, interestingly, the world is made of these elements: the air, earth, fire, water, and the fifth element. And they believe that this pentagram and also the pentacle have an inherent magical power. And it is often inscribed on the mark is made on objects and in the air during the ritual, just like Christians draw the cross on the chest and the forehead and also in the air. So in the similar way, they draw this magical sign to evoke spiritual powers and add strength to the work. Now, it is considered as a sign of protection from harmful energies which are around in our universe, and the pentacle is used to consecrate other tools and objects used in the ritual. So this is a kind of a symbol and also an object used to consecrate the elements before they do their witchcraft. Now, a little more about the five elements. We can understand reality, as I said, in the terms five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. The elements are fundamental aspects of divine energy, they believe, each containing qualities that manifest in our personalities also, and also our way of being in the world. And also each element is also connected not only with our personalities and our bodies, it is also connected with the seasons. It is also connected with the particular deity, and it is also connected with the astrological signs or astrological signs into which a person is born into, which then in turn influences us. Working with the elements, they believe, can help increase certain desired energy or sap out some desired, to bring out some desired energies and experiences such as love, abundance. And by tapping out some of these desired energies and working with these elements, we can achieve balance in our life and offset unwanted experience rooted in the negative qualities in us or from the negative influences coming from these elements, because these elements are thought to have positive and negative energy. A quick walkthrough through these elements. First is earth. They believe the positive qualities associated with the earth are stability, responsibility, respect, and endurance, while negative qualities include stubbornness and rigidity. And the earth's cardinal direction is north, and its season is winter. So again, these all goes in play when they do this rituals and prayers and so on. And if your astrological sign falls into earth, then these are some of the negative and positive qualities which can be in your body and it can be in your life. Now, the fire is the element of transformation, illumination, health, and strength. Its positive qualities promotes love, passion, enthusiasm, courage, and leadership. And negative qualities include hate, jealousy, fear, anger, conflict. And its season is summer, and the direction is south. And again, water is receptive and feminine. Its positive qualities include compassion and forgiveness and intuition. And negative qualities include laziness, indifference, insecurity, lack of control over emotions, and so on. The season is autumn, and the direction is west. And air, it is masculine and projective energy. Positive personal qualities include intelligence, inspiration, optimism, and negative qualities include gossip and forgetfulness. And the direction is east, and the season is spring. And finally, they talk about spirit, because Wiccans believe that this final element is an element which binds all these four elements together, and it is immaterial and presents and connects all other elements, and it is present in all other elements. And and the spirit realm comprises of mother goddesses, male god and various deities and ancestral spirits, cosmic energy, or the divine intelligence in the universe, and so on. The color is white, and the Wiccan rituals and practices, they aim to alter one's consciousness so that one can connect with this energy or spirit or cosmic intelligence which pervades the whole universe and also pervades in all other four elements in the earth, so that they can get the energies associated with that and receive power and achieve the desired end. So the Wiccans usually work with these five elements to get their power, but then they also believe that not only these five elements are important in getting into tapping into the energy source, the desired energy source, but also there are some seasons. There are some seasons which are so important, and which they call Sabbaths. So now Sabbaths are considered to be the days of power, and these are days associated with the four seasons of the year, namely winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And in that chart you can find a detailed view about description about this Sabbath festivals, and they equally divide this four season into 8. And the first season, the season starts with winter, June 20 to 23, and the second comes in May 1, and the third season comes from March 20 to 23, and the next one comes in February 2, and the next season is December 20 to 23, and then the Halloween day, of course, October 31st, and then and the spring, it comes September 20 to 23, and again it ends with August 1, and again the new season starts again in winter in June 20 to 23. And these days are seasons of power, they would say days of power, and the deities are more alert, and the powers of the universe are on the high, and these are the days on times where you can tap into the sources of energies in the universe. And Wiccans also do have deities associated with these days, and energies associated with the particular season. The particular season will have particular energies which you can tap into if that is the energy that you are looking for, and that depend upon sun, right? So, and it is tied up to that horned god, going back to horned god. Now there is another festival which again depends upon the moon and also the mother goddess, called Sabbaths, and Sabbaths are full moon celebrations, and these are to honor goddesses in association with the moon, the movement of the moon. And they have at least 12 to 13 of those full moon days there, or moons in different positions, and each full moon is each kind of the moment is this lunar cycle is attached to this wheel, and there are some seasonal attribution for that, and certain desired powers are attached to each of these days, and you tap into this energy source during those specified days. Let's now talk about some of the tools and rituals they use. So we don't have time to go deeper into that, nor I'm here to introduce Wiccan tradition to you and practices, but just to get you familiarized with that. So let's go through some of the tools and rituals. So Wiccans use various tools for the rituals, including pentacles, which is something which I already said, which is used to consecrate elements. And they also have swords or knives, brooms, to keep the negative energy away, wands, cups, candles, censers, incense, crystal spear, herbs, and so on. And the list goes on. But I have picked only a few which is prominent. And their rituals include repeating spells or mantras, and chanting those spells and mantras according to certain formulas, and invocation, and various forms of meditation. They have kind of visual kind of meditation, projection kind of meditation. They have a lot of types of meditations there. The spiral dance and rhythmic music, clapping, walking in circles, different postures and ritualistic gestures are associated to tap into these energy sources. So what is a promise of Vika then? The Wiccan practices promise one to tap into and communicate with and work with the energies present in 4 elements and also the spiritual realm. So basically they say that Wiccan practice would help you to tap into the energies, tap into the spirits and deities present in these 4 elements, which has a direct influence, direct or indirect influences on your life, which movements and which seasons and all have an influence on our lives, causing bad or good in our life. So there is no there is no fate in Vika tradition. So what they would say is that you may be affected by the change of the star and the change of these energies, but really you have the power to tap into and to turn it around for your advantage. In fact, they believe that they do not believe that gods and energies are perfect, but they believe that one can enter into conversation and even one can argue with gods for your favor. And even if they don't want to do anything good for you, you can just argue with them, and you can have a conversation and dialogue with them. And also you can harness the energies of the elements, and especially during the power days, you can when the energies are at the top in nature, you can tap into that resources and offset your ill fate and boost your good luck and charm. So Vika promises much, and there is a promise, but sometimes people often say that not all that glitters is gold. There is a promise, but there is also a bait, because here what we are dealing with the spirit world, and Christian faith reminds us that there is lie and deception. There can be lie and deception in the spiritual world, and it is not a neutral playground. It can be presented as a very touristy, very kind of attractive and benevolent, but we must know that the spirit world is not a neutral playground. Again, the scripture reminds us that for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against powers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. And sometimes we may get into it, and we will later realize that we are dealing with the forces that we cannot have control over us, and that them taking hold of us, because Jesus reminds us that the devil comes to kill and destroy, and I came to give you life in abundance. If you like to learn more about some of the dangers inherent in it, and also the spiritual warfare where involving the spirit possession and demon possession and so on, I really recommend you to watch Dr. John Helwig's 2021 Fall Coast lectures on spiritual warfare, and it is done from a North American context and from a Christian perspective. Now, as I said, the promise is big, that you can tap into the energies, and in fact, the Christian faith calls us and reminds us that there is a bigger source of energy for all of us, a bigger power which created the Almighty, who created the heaven and earth, and He is calling us not to worship the creation, but worship the creation. What we find is that in the spiritual realm and in the elements, of course, there are some energies and there are some powers attached to that, but you will find that there is a bigger power and bigger person, God, who has created everything, the heaven and earth, and He holds the ultimate power. And there is no need for us to fear these elements and the spirits. And because the Almighty God is the powerful one who has made all these things, and He's promising, and He promised us, and He has a promise for us to make us and mark us as His children. And through faith in Christ, He has made us His children. And through the element of water, especially in baptism, He saves you and claims us and marks you as His own. And again, the power in that element of water doesn't come from the water. It is a means, or it is a water used by God to save us. And so the power comes from God, not the element water as we understand in Wiccan tradition. And once we are His children, He protects us from all harm and all powers of spiritual realm, and He cares for us, and He walks with us. And this is a promise from Psalms 91. I would like to read it and conclude. It really promises that we have a greater protection. We have a protection from the Heavenly Father, God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit, who has created us, so that no spiritual forces and no elements can harm us. So it reads like this: whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. If you say, the Lord is my refuge, and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent. For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in your ways. I hope you got benefited through this lecture, and if you have any questions, please feel free to put that in the chat, or give me an email, and I'll be more than happy to answer you. And I hope you have a great break, and now invite Dr. Gimbel to bring greetings. And thank you so much, and God bless.
Wow, wasn't that fantastic? Again, it's great for Dr. Thompson to give us all the information that he has, things that he's thought about and taught and studied that help us better understand those who are living around us, and some of the ways that things are changing and emerging in world religions and what that means for us. We're going to take a break. If you're here for the premiere, if you're watching the recording, you can take a break at any point. Hit pause, come back later. But you can raid the refrigerator, use the washroom, do whatever you want. I look forward to seeing you for session 8, the final session in this series. Thank you.